Over the next few weeks, one of the big debates in Congress will be over a massive spending package that will include an extension of the child tax credit, a favorite among voters. But with recent changes to the credit, has it become just another form of welfare? Last year, as part of the so-called American Rescue Plan, parents received a tax credit of up to $3,000 per child. During the pandemic, it was even given in the form of checks to families rather than as a traditional credit. One of the strongest critics of this transformation is Scott Hodge. And he says he's the president of Emeritus and senior policy advisor of the Tax Foundation. Recently called the child tax credit a failed experiment. The most important thing to note about Mr. Hodge, he was one of the authors of the original child tax credit back in 1993, and he joins us now. Scott, thank you so much. We appreciate you being here to break this down for us. Now, you were one of the authors of the credit. Clearly, this is not what you meant for it to be. No. Talk to us about what the original idea was behind the child tax credit and how it's sort of been perverted into a welfare scheme.
Tom, this is a sort of a classic case of a policy that was well-intentioned, but has completely gone awry. You know, this started out as a $500 tax credit for families with children. It was meant to be just kind of supplement them, help them out in raising their children. But it's morphed into one of the largest income transfer programs in the federal budget, about $120 billion a year in income that's transferred now to families with children. Many of these individuals who do get the credit get a refund even if they have no income tax liability. And so it's knocked millions of people off the tax rolls. In fact, last year, because of the expansion of the child tax credit under the Biden administration, nearly 50% of all Americans who filed a tax return paid no income taxes, and many of those people got checks back. And this has put the IRS in a really awkward position of being part of the welfare state. And it's not a role that the IRS is very good at. And I think that one of the reasons the IRS is dysfunctional right now is because we have made it a provider of social benefits.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever heard it really framed quite the way that you just did. So, you know, people are getting payments, thousands of dollars in some cases, even though they don't pay any federal income taxes. So they're getting the refund even though they're not paying in. So it basically is a transfer payment or a welfare payment. So how do you fix this, Scott? What's the message for fiscal conservatives here as they come in to take back control of the House of Representatives? You know, what's the fix to get this back to where it used to be?
I think at a minimum, we don't want to expand the child tax credit. And we ought to consider actually moving the credit over into the spending side of the budget. And some have actually proposed moving it over to, say, the Social Security Administration or another administration that's better at providing sort of supplemental income and income support rather than using the IRS. You know, good tax policy should be about promoting economic growth, higher wages, and better living standards, not as a tool for redistribution. And we're doing far too much of that through the tax code now. And in fact, I think what troubles me most about the child tax credit is it really has now allowed or justified members of Congress on both sides of the aisle using the tax code as a tool for both social and economic policy. I mean, look, the Inflation Adjustment Reduction Act that just passed this year under the Biden administration either expanded or created 26 new tax credits now for industrial policy, helping, you know, climate change and
corporate
energy
welfare,
and so forth.
basically corporate welfare type.
Now corporate welfare. Yeah. So we have to stop the madness. We have to stop using the IRS for this kind of purposes.
You know, but Scott, and the Democrats are very good at this. I was talking about this earlier. The Republicans they just don't get it. That there's a psychological impact of converting this from a tax credit basically to a direct transfer payment. Yeah. People get used to having that check. They get used to getting something in the mail. They get used to the. I mean, remember during COVID, people were getting these checks on a monthly basis. So there's a psychological impact where people then become tethered to the government more, right?
Yeah, Tom, that's a really good point. In fact, when Congress's Joint Committee on Taxation studied the expansion or the proposed expansion of the child tax credit, they found that it would be a disincentive to work, that it would knock as many as 1.5 million people off the employment rolls. And that's really bad for families with children, obviously. It would have a disincentive effect on some capital spending, and overall, it would actually reduce the size of the economy. So that's quite contrary to what we would like in tax policy. Why should we have a policy that discourages work? And this is not what we should have in the tax code.
Yeah, to anybody out there who has talked to a business owner and says, I can't find people to work, if you've ever tried to hire anybody, a contractor, anybody, you can't find people to work. You can't, and even though the unemployment rate is very low, we have disincentivized work, and the child tax credit has been a big part of that problem. It's just not recognized as such, and I'm so glad that we had you with us here to break this down, Scott, and we will have you back. Scott Hodge, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you.
No crooked establishment.
None of that twisting the truth. No talking down to me.
Don't tell me how to think.
Don't tell me how to think.
Don't tell me how to think.
I trust Newsmax.
Newsmax.
They don't tell me how to think.
They let
me decide.
Newsmax.
real news
For real people.